What's happening, guys? Sam Adams here, and welcome to a brand new episode of the Jampack Report today for August the 20th of 2019. Of course, for those that are brand new to the show, this is a daily gaming news podcast hosted by yours truly 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, that keeps you up to date and informed on everything happening in the world of gaming. And as I've been saying over the past few days, this is going to be a very packed week for video game news because we are in the midst of Gamescom 2019, and yesterday did in fact show off a ton of big news announcements because we had multiple shows held on Monday. We had Inside Xbox, we had a Nintendo Indie presentation, there was a Google Stadia Connect, opening night live hosted by Jeff Keighley, which was pretty much the big chunk of the Game Awards with also Gamescom awards sprinkled throughout. Very strange show overall, but tons of news coming out of all of these events. However, on top of that, we then got our headline story of the day. It didn't even come from Gamescom. Sony is acquiring Insomniac Games, which is a pretty big deal. And my favorite coverage actually came from Hard Drive, a satire outlet that said Insomniac Games shocked to discover they aren't already owned by PlayStation. So, that's kind of the situation as it stands today. But we will talk more about that, what that means for the console wars going into the next generation whenever it comes to the exclusive games you can expect from console to console. Speaking of exclusives, PUBG is no longer going to be exclusively playable on PlayStation 4 servers if you're on PS4 and Xbox servers if you're on Xbox because the game is getting crossplay coming in October. The Nintendo Switch, as I said, had a pretty big event held yesterday, but now we see what is coming in the indie front because the Nintendo Switch is getting a ton of new indie games. Borderlands 3 and Elder Scrolls Online are the headline, of course, features of a list of Google Stadia games on top of stuff like Cyberpunk 2077, but we will talk more about the Google Stadia Connect, the games you can expect, and the disappointment that will ensue if you pre-order. Sorry. Then we have a brand new Death Stranding trailer and tons of discussion from Hideo Kojima and a translator that shows off peeing holograms and lots of weird babies. Reporting coming from Vice, obviously, from the headline. But overall, I don't even know what the game is. Video up now on youtube.com/SamuelAdamsMedia with a highlight reel of everything that happened for me during the Hideo Kojima Death Stranding portion of the stream yesterday because I was pretty irate when it comes down to it. And finally, Call of Duty Modern Warfare is getting a PS4 open alpha this weekend. If you are looking for something to play, you can dive into the brand new Call of Duty game because dang, I know I will. I cannot wait to get my hands on that. But that's pretty much the lineup for today's show. Again, I do hope you enjoy what I bring to the table. And without further ado, let's go ahead and dive into today's top gaming news. First off, Sony is going to acquire Insomniac Games. Developer of Ratchet and Clank, Spyro, and Marvel's Spider-Man joins the PlayStation family. Sony is buying Insomniac Games, the Japanese company announced on Monday, making Insomniac the 14th internal studio under the Sony Interactive Entertainment banner. The companies did not disclose financial terms of the acquisition, which has not yet closed. Insomniac Games is one of the most highly acclaimed development studios in the industry, and their legacy of best-in-class storytelling and gameplay is unparalleled, said Sean Layden, chairman of Sony Interactive Entertainment Worldwide Studios. In a news release, we have enjoyed a strong collaborative partnership with the studio for many years and are thrilled to officially welcome them to the Worldwide Studios family. The addition of Insomniac Games to SIE WWS reiterates our commitment to developing world-class gaming experiences that can only be found on the PlayStation platform. Joining the WWS family gives Insomniac even greater opportunities to achieve our studio vision of making positive and lasting impressions on people's lives, said Ted Price, Insomniac Games founder and CEO. We've enjoyed a special relationship with PlayStation practically since our inception. Our partnership amplifies our potential, and Marvel's Spider-Man was a testament to this. We are excited to take the next step in our growth alongside longtime WWS partners. Most of all, we look forward to delivering fresh, new experiences for our fans. Insomniac was founded in 1994 as Extreme Software by Price, who is still the company's CEO today. The studio has been independent until now, although it's best known as the creator of franchises that debuted exclusively on PlayStation platforms, like Ratchet and Clank, Spyro the Dragon, and Resistance. Non-PlayStation titles from Insomniac include 2016 Edge of Nowhere, which I've never heard of, and the upcoming Stormland on Oculus Rift. The studio released Song of the Deep in 2016 on PS4, PC, and Xbox One, and Fuse in 2013 on PS3 and Xbox 360. And Insomniac's biggest project outside of Sony was the 2014 Xbox One exclusive Sunset Overdrive, which was later ported to PC, and I would say recently ported to PC as well. The most recent title from Insomniac is the acclaimed action game Marvel's Spider-Man, which launched in September 2018 on PS4 and has sold more than 13.2 million copies worldwide as of July 28th. Once the acquisition closes, Insomniac's current management team will continue to run the studio in conjunction with studios over at in conjunction with Sony's internal studio in San Mateo, California. There we go. Insomniac's headquarters is located in Burbank, California, and the company has another branch in Durham, North Carolina that opened in 2009. This is the first new PlayStation internal developer in a long time. Sony announced ForwardWorks, a studio working on smartphone games, in March 2016. The company's last major studio acquisitions came at the start of the decade, with Dreams developer Media Molecule in 2010 and Ghost of Tsushima maker Sucker Punch Productions in 2011. In the meantime, Microsoft has been beefing up its development portfolio by buying up studios left and right, with 7 acquisitions since E3 2018, including Compulsion Games, Ninja Theory, Playground Games, Undead Labs, and Exile Entertainment, Obsidian, and Double Fine Productions. And so, we have the beginning of what appears to be a pretty big new branch of the console wars, in my opinion. Of course, for those that don't know, the console wars, the big battle that's always been held between Nintendo, Sony, and Microsoft, primarily, that's kind of trying to dominate that consumer space and try and get people playing on their specific platform. And so, going forward, generations aren't going to be defined by power exclusively anymore. Like, whenever the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One came out, the PlayStation 4 was significantly more powerful than the Xbox One. Graphically, it made games look better. Now, the Xbox One X is still the most powerful piece of hardware on the market, but the PlayStation 4 Pro still dominates because it is, number one, comparable in power, and number two, the games that are played on the PlayStation 4 are second to none. There are so many good exclusives, and that's kind of setting the foundation for what the next generation is going to entail. It's all about the games, because at a certain point, games get to a point where they're so gorgeous and so beautiful that the graphics begin to kind of matter less because we have the best graphics possible. Obviously, that's a bit of a stretch. You can do 8K, you can do new lighting effects. A lot of stuff is coming down the pipe, but you understand what I'm saying. It's not necessarily about how they look anymore. It's about the games themselves. And so for Sony to go ahead and say, hey, we're clamping this one down, is a pretty good move. Of course, in terms of Insomniac, that's pretty much like marrying your girlfriend that you've been dating for 25 years. That's essentially the situation you've got here. Again, like I said, with the Hard Drive Satire magazine, online magazine article that read, Insomniac Games shocked to discover they aren't already in the PlayStation family. That's pretty much how everybody is feeling at this point. I remember specifically thinking it was strange whenever it came out that Insomniac Games was partnering with Microsoft to make Sunset Overdrive. I mean, money's money. I get that, but it was just kind of strange because I always felt that they were a PlayStation company, and so now they officially are. Also, I will say that whenever it comes to the performance of a game, I think that Spider-Man works really well and is one of the best games in the generation across all platforms because of the fact that they were able to optimize it specifically to run on a PS4 and a PS4 Pro. They didn't have to worry about the Xbox One, the Xbox One X, the Xbox One S even, whatever the variations are between those iterations of the Xbox console. None of that had to be concerned, or there had to be no concern over that. You just had to focus on the PlayStation ecosystem, which makes things much, much easier. And of course, you can really milk that hardware for all it's worth. But Sony is going to acquire Insomniac Games. Congratulations to the guys over there at Insomniac. And of course, a lot of good stuff coming in the future from that company. However, PUBG is getting cross-platform play between PS4 and Xbox One coming in October. There is about to be more people competing for chicken dinners on consoles, except, you know, it's still 100 people per match. As a part of today's Inside Xbox presentation from Gamescom, it was revealed that PUBG is merging console player bases. Cross-platform functionality between PS4 and Xbox One is coming in the near future, and it's being introduced to the test server in late September and is planned to go live for everyone in early October. ID at Xbox Director Chief Carla I believe I said that correctly, mentioned that this move will deepen the player pool. Cross-platform play will likely get console players in matches with more people who are close to their ranks. Given that everyone's playing on a gamepad, there is no competitive advantage. PC to console functionality hasn't been implemented for obvious reasons. PUBG is the latest game to support crossplay between PS4 and Xbox One. It joins Fortnite, Rocket League, Dauntless, and Call of Duty Modern Warfare, which is the exhaustive list of cross-platform titles between Sony and Microsoft. The list seems small, but it is significant because it's growing all the time, breaking down barriers. And so, PUBG getting cross-platform play, of course, something that has been in the works inevitably for a very long time, and it was inevitable to be. You have to do this. We are in 2019, where you do have the boundary beginning to break between the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One, and PlayStation and Xbox, and even Nintendo in general. The industry is merging together in a really interesting way. Because, as I said, the console wars are shifting in a big way. It's not necessarily about who is winning. It's about who is the most consumer-friendly. It's about who is the most accessible. And right now, to make every game as accessible as possible and to make friends on other platforms as accessible as possible is pretty much setting yourself up for success regardless of who you are working with. Sometimes you've got to work with the enemy to go ahead and win. And although there are no enemies in the gaming industry, it's still a situation that has to be considered, and it's still a pretty good metaphor for exactly how things are happening right now. But all of that to the side, I'm glad to see a bigger player pool coming to the console versions of PUBG. As the article does point out, you can probably get into a match with people that are pretty much on your same skill level in a much faster kind of way, very much so sooner. That was a kind of reiteration of the point, wasn't it? But regardless of that, if you did want to dive into PUBG and play with people on Xbox One, if you're playing on PS4, or if you want to dive in and play with people on PS4, if you're playing on Xbox One, congratulations. That's coming in the end of September to the test servers and in the full game in October. But Nintendo Switch does not have PUBG. However, it is getting a ton of indie games, and that includes Ori and the Blind Forest. There are a bunch of indie games newly coming to the Switch, including Microsoft-published Ori and the Blind Forest, which will be coming to the platform on September the 27th, Nintendo announced in its Indie World Showcase. It will join Cuphead, which released on Switch earlier this year and was also previously a console exclusive on Xbox One. But there was a lot of other info on a variety of games crammed into Nintendo's 20-minute Indie World stream. So, let's break it down. Out today, specifically yesterday, but still out today. The time-slowing first-person shooter Superhot that mixes puzzle-solving with bullets will be out later today, and both Hotline Miami games are finally coming to the Switch by way of the Hotline Miami Collection, which are two pretty stellar games. I must admit, I'm a big fan of Hotline Miami. But again, Superhot and Hotline Miami Collection out now on the Nintendo Switch. Out soon, Risk of Rain 2, a really fun co-op roguelike, came out of early access on PC earlier this year and will hit Switch sometime in the next month. The Diablo-like game from 2012, Torchlight 2, comes to Switch on September the 3rd. Creature in the Well, the dungeon crawler with pinball mechanics, is coming out to the Switch on September the 6th. Then out this fall, Freedom Finger. Whoa. A side-scrolling shoot-'em-up where you steal enemies' weapons to use against them out this fall. The gruesome side-scrolling action game Blasphemous comes to September 10th. Switch on September the 10th. Ori and the Blind Forest Definitive Edition will make the jump over to Switch on September the 27th. A pretty big one, I must admit. Now, to take a brief pause on Ori and the Blind Forest here, the game has been confirmed to run at 1080p 60 in docked mode, and then on top of that, 720p 60 in handheld mode. This game is going to be gorgeous on the Nintendo Switch. I have no doubt in my mind. That's going to be a mind-bogglingly good-looking game, and it's going to be right at home on the Nintendo Switch. Then, we have previously unannounced The Tourist is a voxel puzzle adventure game that looks reminiscent of Star Tropics. It's coming to Switch sometime in November. Comedic hack-and-slash Skellboy lets you swap out body parts in addition to equipment and is out December the 3rd. Munchkin Quacked Quest is a party game where you try and survive a dungeon by undermining your friends. It will arrive sometime before the end of fall. Northgard is a Viking strategy game that comes to Switch on September the 26th. I've heard really good things about that one. The cooperative fantasy puzzle game Trine 4 will bring whimsical problem-solving to Switch on October the 8th, and One Finger Death Punch 2 is a minimalist fighting game that will be out on December the 2nd. We have more, don't worry. Sparklight is a pretty looking top-down action role-playing game that looks heavily inspired by Zelda and will be out sometime this fall. Cat Quest 2 is also coming to Switch this fall because Cats clearly didn't take care of the business the first time around. Cat Quest was an iPad game that actually came out on the Vita, I think, and was given away as a free PlayStation Plus game, and it was not bad, shockingly enough. And then sometime this winter, we have Earth Knight, a side-scrolling platformer. We have Close to the Sun, a first-person horror game where while Klein is a comic book-looking physics puzzler, both of which are due out before the end of the year. Roki is an atmosphere game that takes place in the snow among both friendly and menacing creatures. Europa is a 3D puzzle platformer where you seemingly play as a delightful little person with a blob for a head. They are protected by paint, though, and they die if it gets scraped from falling too much. Oh my god, why? Hypercharge Unboxed is a co-op shooter where you take control of toy soldiers and pretend to be plastic badasses. And What the Golf is the golfing game for people who actually can't stand it, like putt-putt on drugs. Dungeon Defenders Awakened, they just keep on coming, is a spin-off of the first game, which was absolutely wonderful and deserved better than its ill-fated already released sequel. And Do You Want to Pet the Dog? Best Friend Forever will let you pet all the dogs when it comes to Switch on February 14th of 2020. And then we have more games coming out, just a couple, bear with me. Eastward, a new game published by Chucklefish that has the looks of a pixelated and beautiful game, as you'd expect. Skater XL, currently in early access on PC, is coming to the Switch sometime next year. The boat-making exploration game Spiritfarer is planned to arrive next spring, and Fogs, what? Is a colorful and adorable game, and you play as a double-ended dog. It's also slated to arrive in the first half of 2020. I'm pretty sure this is just a reskinned Nobby Nobby Boy, but that's beside the point. Regardless of that, tons of indies coming out on the Nintendo Switch. Of course, if you are big into the indie market on the Switch, you'll know that it is pretty much the place to play indies, and for good reason. They look really good on the console. It's not a really bad place to put them, and that makes sense for the marketplace. So hey, if you are in the market for tons of brand new indie games, the Switch is definitely the place to go for that. But overall, the standouts include Risk of Rain 2. The standouts include Ori and the Blind Forest. You have tons of games like Cuphead that have already come out, but on top of that, Hotline Miami Collection, super hot. It's going to be a really good fall for those that do want to get in on the indie market. Also, as an aside, super hot, fantastic game. It's going to have gyroscopic controls on the Nintendo Switch, which is going to make those slow-mo sequences oh so satisfying. Oh, so satisfying indeed. Now, much like this list that includes a lot of games coming to the Switch that are already out on other platforms, Google Stadia held an entire event surrounding this. Borderlands 3 and Elder Scrolls Online join a dozen games coming to Stadia. It doesn't look too good. Google Stadia arrives this November, and it looks like it's going to launch with a sizable lineup of games. During today's Gamescom Stadia Connect live stream, Google announced two of these games are the highly anticipated Borderlands 3 as well as the long-running MMO, The Elder Scrolls Online. Other additions to the lineup are Darksiders Genesis, Destroy All Humans 3, Mortal Kombat 11, Superhot, Farming Simulator 19, Samurai Showdown, Grid, Doom Eternal, Attack on Titan 2, Windjammers 2, and Kime. Latency in Twitch-based games like Mortal Kombat 11 and Doom Eternal continue to be a point of concern for this streaming device, but Google and publishers appear to be all in on the technology. Google also announced Stadia support for 2020 games like Cyberpunk 2077 and Watch Dogs Legion as well. And so there was also a one, if I remember correctly, Stadia exclusive, and that was Orcs All Die 3 or something. Orcs Must Die 3. Yeah, Orcs Must Die 3 announced as a Stadia exclusive, and that is literally the only game that I think was a Stadia exclusive at launch. But, you know, at some point, you kind of just have to take a step back and say, hey, at least they have pretty good games coming, even if they aren't necessarily exclusives. And so you have Borderlands 3, Elder Scrolls Online, Doom Eternal. There are plenty of games to play, but the issue here is that there's no reason to play them on Google Stadia. I think that's the point that I want to make here. Yeah, it's awesome that you have Borderlands 3. It's awesome that we get Cyberpunk 2077 on Google Stadia and a ton of other games that are definitely worth talking about. But why would I go out and specifically get a Google Stadia? It's kind of like going back to the first couple of stories that we talked about, where that platform exclusive content, those games that are only on PlayStation, only on Xbox, those are the big console sellers. Stadia has nothing. There is no reason for me to go out and play something on this hardware and software that is yet to prove itself. That's the biggest point that I think is really worth driving home here, is that this is completely and totally unproven tech. We don't know if this is going to work or not. Notably, during the live stream, there was buffering. If your live stream buffers and your entire service is centered around the idea of low latency streaming, well, do you think that I should be a bit concerned? Probably. I probably should. And that really brings it home. That's kind of where the Stadia sits today. I do not think that this event that was held at Gamescom helped the console streaming platform thing out by any stretch of the imagination. I think that it might have actually harmed it in the long run. But that being said, still plenty of games coming if you are an early adopter. Again, you have stuff like Darksiders Genesis, which is a very cool looking game. Doom Eternal, you've got Attack on Titan 2 if you're into that kind of weeby stuff. But regardless, you're not going to be getting Death Stranding. But that might not be a bad thing, because the new Death Stranding trailer has peeing holograms and lots of weird babies. Let's go ahead and check out this article from Vice. Hideo Kojima. Actually, let's back up. I had this discussion on stream last night during the actual event. Is it Hideo Kojima or is it Hideo Kojima? I like Hideo, but I think it's Hideo. That's how most people say it. So let's go ahead and try again. Hideo Kojima showed off new characters and gameplay from his upcoming game Death Stranding on Monday at Gamescom in Cologne, Germany. It looks every bit as enticing, mysterious, and hilarious as anything Kojima has done. Death Stranding is the first post-Metal Gear game from Kojima. It's been more or less under wraps, aside from some cryptic trailers, including one in May that featured a couple of tantalizing minutes of gameplay. But now we finally have a better idea of what awaits us when Death Stranding drops in November. Do we, though? Do we actually, Vice? The Gamescom reveal focused on introducing characters, which also gave us a better look at the game's lore. It also gave us a taste of its open-world gameplay with a focus on traversal and some simulation elements. Here is what we already knew. The game follows the aptly named Sam Bridges, played by Norman Reedus of The Walking Dead, as he traverses a mysterious American landscape to bridge divides between people and cities while being menaced by various enemies and monsters. The gameplay clip opens with Sam asleep in a placid landscape. Press circle to wake up. The first thing that he does when he wakes up is take a long pee, capping it off with a gruff "nothing in the tank" before a glowing mushroom pops out of the ground. Sam then establishes a new strand on the game's map by navigating to a kind of high-tech forage container featuring a holographic version of Gamescom presenter Jeff Keighley. After that, Sam falls down the landscape and it looks hilarious. The baby strapped to his chest begins to cry after the tumble and he consoles it. And following that, Sam runs down a hill and the player has to do some balancing with the left and right triggers. Yeah, straight up, that's the gameplay. The first newly revealed character, Mama, played by Margaret Qualley, is an apparent ally of Sam's who is connected via umbilical cord to her ghostly baby, who was born on the other side, so she cannot leave her location. The next reveal is a proper introduction to Deadman, played by Guillermo del Toro. Deadman's exact role is unclear, but he gives Sam a total rundown of what the deal is with the babies in the portable vats. As Deadman explains, these bridge babies, or BBs, are taken from still mothers, as the vats mimic the conditions inside the womb. BBs give people like Sam a connection to the world of the dead and lets them detect the beings known as BTs. But as Deadman explains, no baby has been in service for more than a year. Death Stranding is supposed to implement a novel life death cycle that involves a kind of liminal dimension that in a previous trailer looked like a ghostly World War I battlefield. This may very well be the world of the dead alluded by Kojima, although of course everything is up for interpretation at this point. The entire game is up for interpretation. Gamescom's live opening on Monday featured reveals for the upcoming games such as Borderlands 3, Modern Warfare, and more. And of course, we've talked more about some of those pieces of news there. Again, I have a reaction video to this up on YouTube. I don't know what they're trying to do here. And I wanted to hold out and I really wanted to give Kojima the benefit of the doubt here. But I think that what happened is that it's not him, it's me. It's one of those situations. Because I loved the first few minutes of Metal Gear Solid 5: The Phantom Pain. And then there were weird supernatural events occurring. And then I lost interest completely. It's like Metal Gear Solid 5 didn't know if it wanted to be a hardcore military shooter or if it wanted to be some kind of supernatural exploration, find yourself kind of game. It was a very strange game. That being said, Kojima has been completely and totally unleashed since being unleashed from Konami. He is completely and totally free to do whatever he wants, and that's dangerous and also freeing at the same time. And so this game is going to be strange. I don't know that anybody will ever fully understand what Death Stranding actually is. I'm completely lost myself, and I'm not going to be playing this game on day one. I'm not going to pass go, I'm just not into it. It's just not a game for me, because it's... Have fun. But with that being said, tons of new info about Death Stranding revealed at Gamescom. And then you have this baby that looks like a South Park character connected to this woman, which... Actually, no, I'm sorry. This is not her baby. This is the tube baby that looks like a South Park character. That's Mama, a character named Mama. I'm done. Let's get back to the grittiness of Modern Warfare, because there is a Call of Duty Modern Warfare PS4 Open Alpha this weekend. Call of Duty Modern Warfare on PS4 gets an Open Alpha this weekend for the new 2v2 mode Gunfight. The Open Alpha runs from the 23rd to the 25th, and you do not need PlayStation Plus to play, although there are 5 close quarter maps to play on, including Docks and Speedball. I've played Gunfight, the author says at Eurogamer, a fair bit, and it's a lot of fun. Each team begins the round with a random weapon loadout, although developer Infinity Ward has curated loads of loadouts, from pistol and rocket launcher to scoped guns. The point is, you never know what you're going to get, but all players get the same loadout. It's a tense, tight, and a blast. And of course, if you do want to check it out, again, that Open Alpha begins on the 23rd, running through the 25th, and you do not need PlayStation Plus to play. So if you do want to dive in and check out Modern Warfare, a pretty good site early, you can check it out this weekend, and I know that I will, because man, I cannot wait for this game. The 2v2 mode Gunfight definitely has a throwback to Modern Warfare 3, which of course introduced the 1v1, 2v2, and 3v3 modes, which were very fun, especially whenever you had 1 to 2 people that you played with on a pretty regular basis. But looking forward to Modern Warfare, definitely my most anticipated shooter of the fall, without a doubt. I would say even going past Doom Eternal and kind of overtaking that one. Without a doubt, a day one for me. But that rounds out today's episode of the Jampack Report. Of course, if you are brand new to the show, I do hope you enjoy what I brought to the table. And of course, the show is hosted 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, on youtube.com/SamuelAdamsMedia. And on top of that, you can find it on your audio platforms, whether it be Spotify, Apple Podcast, Google Podcast. I've got them all covered for you. But until tomorrow, you guys have a fantastic rest of the day. If you're watching Gamescom coverage, enjoy the coverage. It's my favorite time of the year to be in part or a part of the gaming industry, just because there's so much camaraderie and so much excitement that you can feel it in the air. And man, I do love feeling it in the air. But with that being said, you guys have a fantastic rest of your day. I will talk to you soon, and peace.